Hello friends, Dr. Mustafa is here with another lecture about the cells and the different organelles present within the cell. So in this lecture we will try to study and we'll try to learn about what the cells are and how many different organelles are present within the cells, about their structures and their functions. And remember, it's a basic biology course, so it is designed to introduce you about all these things. So if you know about the cells, if you are a higher secondary student of biology or a university student who is majoring in biology, this place is not for you. It's like tata, bye bye from my side. Okay, let's go ahead with the non-biology students and with the people who don't have enough biology background and who want to know about the cells and the uh, function and structures of different organelles present within the cells. So here we go. Let me start sharing my screen with you. So I will be talking about the cells as the basic unit of life. So as we all know that the cells, the living organisms are made up of small components, and those components are called as the cells. So whatever we are doing as an organism is actually executed at a cellular level. So that is why it is called as the structural unit as well as the functional unit. The structural unit in a sense because all the living organisms, whether they are animals, they are plants, they are made up of cells. And the functional unit because whatever we are doing, like we are respiring, we are exchanging gases because the cells are exchanging gases. We are eating food to produce energy because the cells require food to produce energy. And we are excreting the waste material from our bodies because the cells are excreting waste material from our bodies, from themselves. So in total, the cells are the unit of structure as well as the functions of all the living organisms. Although there are different types of cells, and we'll be studying about all these things in the upcoming slides. Okay, so all the living things, they are made up of tiny little structures called as cells, and we don't know about the cells until unless somebody discovered that beautiful thing, and that is what we call as the microscope. And remember that microscope did not create the cell. The cells were already there. So with the help of microscope, we have increased the capacity of our observation. We have increased the capacity of our sense organs to see the things. So if something is not there, if something we can't see, that does not mean that thing do not exist. So the cells are like that. So somebody discovered the microscope like in 1680, and then we came to know that the living things, the living structures, they are actually made up of small, simple components, and they named those simple, small compartments as cells. So they are very beautiful things, very different types of shapes and structures. So originally, the cells was discovered with the help of a microscope invented by Robert Hooke at that time. He studied a very thin, fine film of cork cells, and he observed that a little chambers and small compartments present within those small slice of the cork, and he named those things as cells. So after that, I mean, it was just a new beginning for the people who were studying biology at that time. They started discovering cells in almost every other organism, and they suddenly came to know that, oh my God, if there is a life, there is a cell. So if one form of life is different from another form of life, it is because of one form of life is carrying a different kind of cells as compared to the other form of life. For example, the plants are different from animals because the animals contains cells of different types as compared to the cells present in the plants. If a cat is different from the horse, it is because the cat cells are different from the horse cells. So, but one thing is common. If something is living, it is made up of all these small little things which we call as cells. So different people have contributed in these concepts. In 1673, one of the scientists studied the organisms, small organisms called protists. We will be studying on these things in another place, but they are like unicellular small organisms, and they discovered different types of organisms, and they named them. They found life in all different versions of life, whether they are a single cell organism like Euglena, or stentor, or microcyst, or spirogyra. Spirogyra is a kind of algae. It's a multicellular organism, which means it is made up of more than one cells, actually many cells. Euglena is a single cell species. Okay, and then the Schleiden and Schwann, these two people have contributed their knowledge and their observation and their studies related to plants and the animal tissues respectively in 1838 and then in 1839. So together they created a theory which was very famous and very important. It is called as the cell theory. It was proposed in 1839, and it is still survived as one of the basic foundation of life. That all the organism, they consist of one or more cells. Cells are the basic unit of structure of all organism, as I said earlier. And the last, another point was added later on in 1858, that all cells arises from the pre-existing cells. And cells can be categorized into different categories based on the nature of the cells and based on the number of cells. For example, if an organism is made up of one cell, that organism is called as unicellular. If an organism is made up of so many lot of cells, that organism is called as multicellular. So all the life forms which you can see, they are all multicellular organisms. And most of the unicellular organisms, which are made up of one cell, they're very small, and it is not possible to see them with the naked eye. So we need assistance like a microscope to see the unicellular organisms. Another way of categorizing the cells are the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells are the primitive ones. They are the cells which arises earlier. And eukaryotic cells are the cells which evolved later on. They are more complicated, and prokaryotic cells are more simpler ones. There are many ways you can divide these two types of cells. You can define these two types of cells, but as a rule, you should remember that the prokaryotic cells are the ones which do not carry any well-defined nucleus. That does not mean the prokaryotic cells do not carry genetic material, but the prokaryotic cells, they do not carry a well-defined chamber, which is very famous. That chamber is called nucleus. The prokaryotic cells do not carry any nucleus, while the eukaryotic cells, they do carry a well-defined chamber which enclosed the genetic material, and that chamber is called as nucleus, and the cells are referred as eukaryotic cells. There are a lot more other differences out there. Since the prokaryotic cells are the simpler ones, they're preliminary type of cells, so that is why the organisms which are made up of prokaryotic cells, they are simpler ones, and they are also called as prokaryotes. While the eukaryotic cells, they are complicated ones. So the organisms which are made up of eukaryotic cells, they are comparatively more complex and advanced, and they're also called as eukaryotes. So this slide explains the difference between prokaryotic cells and the eukaryotic cells. So this slide explains about the comparison between the prokaryotic cells and the eukaryotic cells. The prokaryotic cells does not have any well-defined nucleus. The genetic material is dispersed within the cytoplasm, while in case of eukaryotic cells, the genetic material, means nucleic acid or DNA, is enclosed within this compartment and is called as the nucleus, like this one. I draw it for you, nucleus. It also contains other membranous bounded structures like mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum, this one, and some Golgi complex. They are membranous bounded structure which are only present in the eukaryotic cells and they're not present in the prokaryotic system. Bacteria is an example of a prokaryote because it is made up of a prokaryotic cell, while animals and plants, they are made up of eukaryotic cells. And bacteria is an example of unicellular prokaryote. Since it's made up of one cell, so it is unicellular, and that one cell is prokaryotic, so it is a prokaryote. Its examples are Escherichia and Salmonella. They're not very nice bacteria, but Escherichia, one of the species, Escherichia coli, which is commonly called as E. coli, helped mankind a lot, and we used it for our research purpose in the lab. The other category, the protists, they are unicellular eukaryotes. What that means? They are single cell organism like paramecium and amoeba, but those cells are eukaryotic in nature. So, and these are placed under a category called protists. Humans is another example of multicellular eukaryotes, humans and plants as well. They have lots of hundreds of thousands of trillions of cells. All of them are eukaryotic cells. That is why they are called as eukaryotes. So all the multicellular organisms, the big ones, all of them are basically eukaryotes. Cells are present in different size and different shapes depending on the nature of their job and depending on the nature of the organism. In general, the prokaryotic cells, they are comparatively smaller in size. That is why prokaryotes are comparatively smaller in size as well. So cells like it starts from like the size of the atom is something like this, 0.1 nanometer, and then it goes to the size of the molecules, and then the viruses came here about the size of 100 nanometer, and then the organelles, the components present within the cells, and then the total cell is about the size of 100 micrometer, and then the zygote and the embryos and chicken egg, and then the other things. So all these things are different components of the cells. In order to understand the perspective of cell size, let's assume that this is a tip of a needle, and a tip of the needle carries lots of small organisms like bacteria. If you zoom that thing further and further, you came to know that they are made up of, there exists a lot of small bacteria of the size of 1 micrometer. Many bacteria of that particular size exist on this small tip of that needle. It is that much small, you can't see from your naked eye. The eggs, they are also considered as single cell. This is supposed to be the biggest single cell thing we are having, like any egg, because the egg contains one zygote, which is made up of one single cell. That zygote can eventually develop into a whole new organism. But remember, the egg carries all the nutrition and all the things which are required for the development of an organism. So that is why it is comparatively bigger. So most of the things present in the egg are supportive material for the organism. So there exist cells of different sizes and different shapes, I told you, depending on the nature of their job, what they are doing. Some of the cells are very large in size because they need to transmit information from one part of the body to the other part, like neurons. Some other cells like this one, like this red blood cells, biconcave in shape, and it is designed in this way in order to execute its function, because the RBCs or the red blood cells, their job is to transfer oxygen from one place to another. So the next thing is the parts of the cells. Okay, so then the next part of our lecture, we will be studying different components, organelles, and parts present within the cells. Okay.